for it. Khoa, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, man.
How are you doing today?
Good. Got a lot of work done today. So
that's very good, man. We will talk a lot about that. But first of all, just to set the tone for this conversation, we have been working with Khoa in the past year on a project, and so that's how we got to know each other. I was working on the system side. Khoa is working on the copywriting side, and that's what we are going to talk about today. But just to make a reference, we are talking about an account or a customer, if you will, who is in the info space. He is a pretty big name in his niche, having about 500,000 followers on YouTube. He also has a pretty large email list. That's where the whole email marketing part came in. And as far as revenue goes, in the past 11 to 12 months, we have generated probably around $350,000, maybe a little bit more. It's somewhere between 350, 400. And the majority of it actually converted from the email list and email marketing, where Khoa did have a huge contribution. And so we decided that we are just going to talk about this project as well. I'm also curious about how you got to copywriting, because one thing I love about you, and last time when we met in person, I asked you, like, bro, how do you generate these, copies? Like, how can you speak so well in like on behalf of someone else? And you are working with multiple people, right? So you can copy the style of multiple people at the same time and write really, really good copy. And I'm always wondering, like, is it like an art that you just, you was just born with, and it's hardly replicable, or is it something that you learned over the years, or is it a mix of the two? Like, this is something I'm very curious about, and hopefully by the end of the conversation we will figure out what's your secret sauce. And but before we would go into that, I just want to have like a quick intro from you and a background of how you got here. Why did you pick copywriting? What's your background? What experiences did you have in the past? Have you sold things and then you turned that into like a written format, or did you come from a completely different field of profession? Like, take it away, man. Make like a brief intro at first.
Yeah. So first of all, can you hear me all good with this distance?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so first of all, just to give a brief background, right? I basically run an email marketing agency serving like big creators, right? And I've been helping essentially big creators since 3-4 years. So I like know what they think about. I know like what these guys want. I know XYZ. Just to give an example as well, I tend to work with guys who are a lot more long-term, right? Who care about brand, right? So the reason why I mentioned that is a lot of people, when they work with creators, they don't think about this stuff. They don't think that these guys care about their audience. Like, these guys actually spent sometimes decades, right? Like, one of the clients I worked with was Dorian Yates, which was 6 times Mr. Olympia. That is 20 plus years of brand building. 20 plus years. Imagine that, right? So these are the type of people I've been working with for the last, 3, maybe 4 years. I'm not sure now. So that's essentially what I do. And then we do 2 main things. We grow email lists, and then we monetize the email list, right? How we do it is every strategy under the sun that I can find that works, basically, right? I also take a lot of influence from the B2B newsletter world. So, for example, not HubSpot. What was it? The Hustle, right? HubSpot bought The Hustle, so that's why I was thinking HubSpot. The Hustle and Milk Road, Morning Brew, right? These guys essentially built their email list. It's a newsletter, but it's essentially an email. It's the same thing. Right? And I don't know why no one thought about crossing the strategies over. I did have a little bit of unfair advantage, though, to have that insight, just because I've worked with these guys for so long. And I just saw the same patterns, and then what this can solve, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
How do you think copywriting differs in these different niches? So you said that you have been working with big creators. And but there is also like the B2B, like software space. There is also the B2C software space, like software as a service companies. There are also ecom brands, like probably they do email marketing differently than an info product owner or an education based company, let's say. Like, how do you differentiate those in terms of communication?
Gotcha. So just for reference, I specifically do not work with ecom. I don't work with anyone else that's outside of creator and personal brand, right? Specifically, the reason why is it's purely selfish. It means that I can essentially systemize everything and then go deep, right? Rather than going wide. But to answer your question, how copywriting differs is that if you're going creator based, you're going a lot more personality based. You're going a lot more relationship driven, which essentially what that means is I'm on the boat or on the thought process of a lot of people do copywriting wrong in terms of creator and personal brands and stuff. They try to sell way too hard, way too much, and you just got to chill out, right? When you're working with personal brands, when you're working with something that's like personality based, you have the advantage of essentially relationship. Like whatever you, quote unquote, you say, which is the creator, if you have a good relationship with the audience, you're set, you're good to go. That's it. That's your advantage. So don't kill that goodwill by selling too hard. Right? So that's on the personality side of things. That's on the creator side of things, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you're going to go this way and you're going to go towards, let's say, ecom, let's say, what else is this way? So ecom, SaaS, et cetera, anything that doesn't really have a personality, cool. You can sell, you can, if you want to go this way, I would go a lot more direct, right? The copy needs to be direct and it cannot be confusing.
What do you mean under direct? Do you still split the value and the sales emails in a healthy way? Or what do you mean under direct? Like, do you push more sales, or you just like, how do you define direct in case of an ecom brand?
Cool. So let's just determine this and then we'll go here. So over here with personality driven brands, etc., personal, whatever it is, right? When you're selling, you don't actually want to, or at least with the copy, like it needs to be within their voice, which means you can't go like the wording can't be so, hey, come buy my stuff. Does that make sense? Like that is just direct, come buy my stuff.
Yeah.
Because you're like working within their like voice, you're working within their brand, XYZ, blah, 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 blah. Right. So you have to wrap it within that. Now, in ecom, in SaaS, in anything like this, where there's no personality base, what I would recommend is the wording needs to be clear. Do not go clever. Don't try to like go, all of these billboards and stuff, and they try to do clever, whatever. I'm talking strictly direct response copy, by the way. Don't try to go do this. You don't have the money to blast all of this stuff. Chill out. Just go, hey, here's the offer. Here's what I'm offering you. Here's the discount. Here's the promo. Here's whatever. Here's Black Friday. Here's whatever. You want it or not, right? The copy needs to be clear. That's the difference. Over here, the copy needs to be relationship based, not super like clear is you don't have to speak that actually clear, right?
How do you mix if there is like an ecom brand or a SaaS where there is like also a personal brand behind it? So for example, if someone first built a personal brand, then brought on a product or launched a software as a service or something, then is it more a personal brand, or did that become a ecom brand or a SaaS company or something like that?
Yeah. So cool. So to essentially recap your question, if it was a ecom business or a SaaS business that has a founder facing marketing.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. The super interesting part about that is whatever you build, let's say you're doing founder facing marketing, you have a personal brand on social media, whatever you build, whatever your business is, whether it's SaaS, whether it's ecom, the language needs to reflect you. It's very, very especially at the beginning. If you already have if it's already a machine working away from you where you're not bringing in the leads, cool, you're fine. Like whatever, it's its own entity at this point. But if it's at the beginning to like small to medium-sized businesses, the language needs to reflect you. You essentially bring in everyone. All right. A really good example of this is Sabri Subri and his AI thing called King Kong. Yeah.
Kong AI, I believe that's the domain.
Yeah.
That was in my mind when I was asking that question, actually.
Yeah. If you read through it, it's super like big daddy energy, super kind of sassy, to be fair.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And look, you might even have two, let's say, acquisition channels or two email lists or two complete different communications. So if you are building that separate entity out, then that can have a sort of like a faceless SaaS communication, whoever subscribed to directly to that email list, because probably there are people who didn't know him before. I mean, he's known by a lot of people, but still, they just came in because of the software, right? So they don't have that much of an attachment to the person. And then he can also drive traffic from his personal brand. And then his personal brand is kind of like its own entity, right? Because he owns multiple companies. He has the agency, he has now the software company, and probably he has a bunch of other things. And then as a personal brand, he can always talk about any of those chosen companies where he wants to drive traffic, if you will. And then he can have that kind of little bit cocky, little bit interesting communication, more entertaining, if you will. And if like King Kong as an agency would have their own email list or communication or whatever, and then the software company would also have, that might be more direct, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. And you also mentioned that you are focusing on like a brand focused email marketing to like protect the brand as an asset. How do you do that? Because I believe that on the other side of the coin, it's kind of like the exploitation and extraction of value and taking out the goodwill, right? And monetize it and turn it into cash. But then there is always a transaction. If I get money, probably I will get a little bit less goodwill from my audience, right? And so how do you maintain that balance? Because it's more a long-term play, and I'm very glad that you phrased that way in the beginning of the call. So how do you maintain to make sure that even 10 years from now, that person can still extract value and live off of their audience or their offer or product in an ethical way, obviously, and then still have that brand where people love, trust, and would love to buy more from him?
Yeah. Okay. So to first answer this question, right, it needs to actually start with the way that I structure the offer with my clients. And the reason why I say that is I have a long-term service, which is why this works. Because if the person writing the copy doesn't have a long-term relationship with the audience, they're going to try to burn your audience. And it's just natural human incentive. That's it. They're trying to make as much money as they can while they're working with you. Natural human incentive, right? Just normal stuff. Now, to answer your question in terms of how do you balance that out is, I mean, super simple, right? You give more than you take. Super simple. But then how do you do that and still actually make the money? So there's a couple of things you need to think about, which is one, every year there's basically maybe 8 to 12 huge kind of campaigns that you can essentially run, right? And why do I say 8 to 12? Just think of the holidays. That's it. Super simple. Western society
Christmas,
holidays,
Black Friday, yeah.
Christmas, Black Friday, Valentine's, whatever it is, right? You can
is it kind of like making you legally run strong on sales, kind of, in the emails, because people expect it?
Exactly. Okay. All right. So it gives you a huge excuse as the creator, as the business, to extract and not look salesy. So for example, Black Friday, people are expecting a sale. So go sell, right? But so within the year, there's about 8 to 12, right? You can even make it up. You can go company's first birthday, your children's first birthday, whatever, just 8 to 12, right?
You got to have a lot of children then.
Yeah, all that, right? So you also don't want to do it. So what's the cadence? What's the XYZ? You don't want to do it too much, right? So you want to go either every 4 to about 6 weeks. 8 weeks is probably too long. 4 weeks is a little bit too short. So about 4 to 6 weeks. If you have done a huge campaign already, chill out for a little bit, right? So for example, a Black Friday campaign, a Cyber Monday campaign, those campaigns tend to run for quite a while. After that is done, relax, chill out until like Christmas. And that gives you about 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, right? So you just do that over and over again throughout the whole year. So that gives you a pretty big spike throughout the year. That's one. The second thing is, this is a standard email marketing, which is called daily broadcasts. All that is your daily emails to the list. Obviously, the list is segmented, right? I will go into this in a second. But your daily emails to the list, a lot of the emails are actually going to be nurturing emails, which means chill out on the selling or dropping links. Just chill out a little bit. The industry actually goes the other way, which is they try to drop links too much. But then take a look at their metrics like 6 months down the line and you'll see why it's incorrect. Right. There's that. Now, in terms of, I just mentioned segmentation, and this is super important, right? This is a data or a number or XYZ by HubSpot. I don't claim to be a genius. I just follow what works, right? HubSpot did a study and went, if you do segmentation to your email list, you essentially make 8 times more money. This is from HubSpot. HubSpot is worth billions, right? I'll listen. So basically with segmentation, you can do something super interesting, which is when you have a lead magnet, all right? When you're growing the list and you have a lead magnet, whatever it is, right? Whatever your lead magnet is, I can go to lead magnet in a second, which changes depending on the product. That's just a little seed, but I'll go into it in a second. Whatever your lead magnet is, I would highly, highly advise at some point in the lead magnet process, like within maybe a week, maybe at the beginning, whatever it is, go do a quiz, go whatever you got to do to go get whatever their main pain points are. Let's say you have a product that has 5 main pain points, right? Find it. Find out whatever their main pain point is, because right at the beginning, you can essentially tag that in your ESP, which all that means is your email service provider, active campaign, kit, whatever, right? You tag that and then you go, cool, this person struggles with this the most. And then what you do is in your welcome sequence, which most people do not do this, and I don't know why, it's kind of dumb. In your welcome sequence, you essentially separate them by their main pain point that they just told you they struggle with. So then you actually do, everyone does the same like 7-day, 30-day welcome sequence or whatever. I don't think that's correct. I think you should do different welcome sequence. You essentially do the same welcome sequence and then you just times it by 5. Exact same emails, swap out the pain points, times it by 5, and then times that by about 30 emails or 45 emails, and that's your whole welcome sequence.
That's pretty smart. Do you think it makes sense to do the segmentation from the get-go? Because that was 100%. the first thought in my mind that, okay, how large the list should be to start doing this? Because if I just over-segmentize my list, then I just have a ton of work, and it might not make a big difference because, for example, if the conversion goes up a couple of %, it doesn't matter if I have a 500 or 1,000 size email list, contact size email list, but if I have 100,000 contact size email list, then it matters. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, let's quickly go into the 500. Even if you have a 500 to 1,000 size email list, here's what becomes interesting, right? Let's say your offer is $3,000, whatever. Let's say your offer is $3,000. Most of those people, right, are going to not be able to afford $3,000. Cool. You can immediately get them in a quiz and then say, okay, cool. I make, let's say they go through the quiz, they make $2,000 a month. Like immediately, this person, if I blast them content about a high ticket offer, it's not going to resonate with them.
Well,
right?
that's true.
So even if it's a 500 to 1,000 email list, I want to be able to segment out the 50, the 20, whatever it is, people that can afford this $3,000 offer, and then just create a essentially a sequence for them. Why not?
That's pretty smart. And actually, if I'm thinking in sequences, and I would only change, for example, the pain point, or maybe in case if I'm collecting data on how much they make currently, then I'm also segmenting my offers, right? Because I might give something which is like $100 subscription community. Yeah, but if I'm going for the people who make like above 5K or 10K, then I can go with the high ticket emails, as well as maybe sometimes with this community or something. But the thing is that, like, in case of if I'm writing a sequence, it's not a big recurring job, right? Because I just have to make the first one once and then copy the thing, and then probably a little bit shift and change the communication and maybe swap the products behind it, right? So it's not a big thing. So I think it makes sense to make from the get-go. But do you also write separate newsletters weekly for separate audiences?
Nah. Here's the pro tip, by the way. You actually don't really need to write the welcome sequence, because the daily broadcasts. Think about an email list as your chance to essentially show people content. Just if you think about it in terms of content, it makes a lot more sense. And the reason why I say that is every single email that you sent out, you get immediate feedback and real feedback, open rates, right? Click-through rates, link clicks, whatever it is, bounce rates, etc. You get real feedback on whether people actually resonated with it or not. And then you just take the daily broadcast and then you swap that out into the welcome sequence. What does that do? Everyone that comes into your email list from now on forward, you show them the best stuff always. All your high-performing stuff, put out the front.
So basically,
and this is just a test. This is a test. It's a mixing pot.
Yeah. So the daily and the weekly newsletter is basically kind of like a testing ground, if you will. And then once things bounce off that, this one is great, then you can just use that as in a leveraged way, because you are putting in an onboarding sequence or some sort of sequence. That's pretty smart.
Bingo. Yeah. You can also get out gender, right? So in the quiz, whatever it is you get to do to like get this information.
Yeah.
Male or female, you can essentially approximate them, right? You can speak a lot more closely to them by changing the testimonials depending on whether they're male or female. Right. And also depending on which country they live in.
So let's make it also practical and see the numbers behind it. Like, so for example, how do you divide the general newsletter that goes out weekly, like 3 times a week, 2 times a week, 1 time a week? How much do you write value contents, and do you write sales contents in between campaign periods? So for example, if there is a big gap, let's say 8 weeks until the next big opportunity to make a campaign, do you write like sales emails still in between those 8 weeks or during those 8 weeks, or you just purely provide value, or you phrase your value contents in kind of like a soft sales way? Like how do you do that? Like, what's the percentage ratio in a non-campaign time period?
Cool. So in a non-campaign time period, right? So I'm not running a campaign. Let's say I just ran one, blah, blah, blah. I want to chill out. The real and very honest answer is you have to keep a pulse on your metrics. Your metrics will essentially tell you what is the relationship between the audience and the list.
Okay.
Right? Like how are they treating the list? Meaning, right? After you run a campaign, if you try to sell again, it's going to drop dramatically. So you need to chill out. That's very, very obvious. Now, how you do that is so typically you would run, let's say like 3 nurturing emails a week. You don't really have to do too many. 2 is a little bit too less, whatever. 3 is good, right? This data was also from Hormozy. All right, sweet. Let's take that.
Yeah.
So 3 is good. And then for the selling part, for the soft sell, for this, dropping in the daily broadcast, you go, hey, check this out. And then you do a soft sell or whatever. That would highly depend on your open rates and your click-through rates, whether it's too low or not. If it's too low, so I'll give you an example.
What is too low and what is the optimal for both data?
Brilliant. So the smaller your email list is, the higher that all of these numbers should be. So this is very, very obvious, right? The bigger the email list, the lower naturally the numbers are going to get. Let's say you have a 50K email list or plus or whatever. That's a decent size email. That's okay. Cool. That's okay. Your open rates should be about like 20% is like good. Quote unquote good. Right? 15%, you're almost in trouble. And then 10% is borderline spam. Open rates. Open rates. Borderline spam. If you get into borderline spam, you're borderline fucked. Right? The 15%, if you're getting there, you need to get it higher. And then we can talk about how to do that in a second. And then 20% and up is okay, is good, right? I actually tend to, with my clients, I tend to get like the main clients that I work on, I tend to get about 35, maybe 40%, etc. It changes on the list, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. But that's actually what I shoot for in my head. But the normal metrics is what I just told you, right? I tend to shoot for a lot higher, just because I like to have buffer. I like to have contingency. That's just how I personally work. So, yeah, those are like the open rate metrics. Now, in terms of link clicks, right, or click through rates, etc. No, not link clicks, click through rates. By the way, it's not the amount of people that was sent the email that was clicked, which a lot of people track, which is incorrect. It's actually the amount of people who opened the email that clicked. That's what you want to look at. I don't necessarily remember which wording it was, click the rate or click to open, whatever.
I think it's CTR, click-through rate.
Yeah, I think it's CTO. I think there's an O in. Yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's the people who opened the emails that clicked, right? Whatever.
How many percentage of the people who opened actually clicked?
Yeah, that clicked the link inside of the email, right?
Yeah.
That should be about 2.5 to 3.5. Should be.
Percent.
Yeah.
So if 100 people opened the email, then 2.5 people, 3 people should have clicked, right?
That's relatively good. Yeah. If you're lower than that, all right. If you're higher than that, cool, sweet, you're great.
Irregardless of the industry or what you are selling, because if you are selling like a low ticket item or a product, is it differ from a free book a call consultation or something like that?
Yeah, cool. FYI, I'm only speaking towards personal branding creators, so not Ecom, not XYZ. That is not my world.
Is it book a call? Is it book a call that you were referring to as a CTA?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. What changes is this: there's a couple specific emails, right, that have wild open rates and click-through rates that you can't really like. These don't really count. For example, if people just signed up for a lead magnet and then you're sending them, hey, here's your lead magnet, that is going to go through the roof. You can't count that, right? Because they're expecting your email, they're going to open it. Duh.
Of course.
If they book a call and then you send them a reminder, they're going to open it. Duh. That doesn't count. If you're sending them reminder emails, doesn't count, right? So I'm strictly talking about just normal emails, daily broadcasts, whatever. That's great.
When they don't expect it.
Bingo. Yeah, when they don't expect it. Also campaigns as well, right? Campaigns obviously tend to like go down after a lot of people after a lot of people on the list like open the campaign, it tends to go down, right? Which is natural, it's normal. Don't worry about it, right? Yeah, so those are like the numbers for like a 50K list, XYZ. The bigger the list gets, the smaller these numbers get, right? And then the smaller the list, your numbers should be way higher. It should be like 40%, 50% open rates. If you have 1,000 email lists, right, it should be way, way, way higher, right? So that's the like general rule of thumb.
In summary, if we are summarizing everything that we have talked so far, I think it's really important that it's these data that we were talking about are specifically for creator niche or someone who has a creator or a brand, regardless of like what they are selling, but they do have to have a self brand. And you're focusing on keeping the brand alive first and then sales second, if you will. And then if we are breaking down to the strategy and the numbers of how we should build this, we really talking about like campaign periods and non-campaign periods, where we shift how much we talk about sales. I think that's an important component of it. It's also important that we are talking about sequences and broadcast emails, which are kind of like the weekly newsletters, and the sequence is something that something has to trigger the sequence to actually run through. So for example, an ebook download or an opt-in or something. And then basically that's our honey, the most valuable stuff. And the newsletter is kind of like a testing ground for it, if I got that right. And also 20%, about 20% open rate is good. And 2.5% click rate is what we are aiming for in this industry. Did I summarize it up well enough?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good reference. And I believe there is a lot of copywriting tricks, how you can kind of save an email list and then increase the open rate, probably phrasing the title properly and stuff like that. But there is also a technical part of it. Do you have experience with like how to save an email list if it got on like block lists or something like that? Or do you know if in between like email marketing platforms, like do you see a big spike in deliverability if you use a certain platform or if you are using another? Like, have you ever experienced when you are moving from somewhere to another place, then it become better or something like that? What's your experience from the technical standpoint?
Yeah, so from the technical standpoint, that's not my super expertise, but I'll just cover what I know here.
Yeah.
One is if you stick towards the main competitors, right? So if you stick towards Kit and Active Campaign, you're pretty much good to go. I wouldn't go stuff like MailerLite and like these kind of. I don't know who's running this, so if you hear this, sorry. But these kind of like a little bit more sketch softwares, right? They screw with one, the features aren't that good. Two, deliverability kind of sucks, right? Three, formatting on a lot of these, so like MailerLites, et cetera, kind of just sucks, right? So those are the main things in terms of technical.
Mm-hmm.
I actually do have something interesting if you want to cover it in terms of the content of the email, because we've actually spoken about the strategy of the stuff, but how do you?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So with these emails, like how do you write it for these guys? How do you write it for personal brands, and how do you write it for creators? Right. One key thing or the biggest tips is I'm going to start very granular, and then if you have questions, you can just let me know.
Yeah, sure.
So these emails, let's say a story-based nurturing email. Cool, very, very easy email, no call to action at the end. Maybe there is a soft call to action, whatever. These emails, it needs to have one big idea. That's the key thing here, right? And what that means is don't try to, if you're going to talk about a topic, talk about one specific topic. One thing. If you're going to talk about ice baths, talk about ice baths. If you're going to talk about mindfulness, talk about that. If you're going to talk about water, talk about that, right? And also the other key thing is, which I see everyone doing the opposite, and I don't know why. A lot of these emails should be value-based, which means learning-based. What does that mean? It needs to be a lesson. As when you read through it, can I extract a lesson out of this and go, oh, that's interesting, right? Because you're dealing with, at least for the type of people that I'm dealing with, which is personal brand creators, and they typically have an info product, which is typically educational. It needs to have a lesson in it, right? One short lesson that you can pull out. That's another key thing. The other key thing is a lot of the formatting of these emails, right? It needs to be clean. It needs to be scannable. That is the point, right? Is it legible? If I just go like scroll through it, is it legible? And there are little small tips here. So one, don't make the sentences too long. Sentences, right? Don't make it too long. The other thing is end the sentences with a period or a dot, right? The dot is if you want to, let's say you're speaking, you want to give suspense, right? That's the writing version. The other part is the grade level can't be too high. Third grade, if the person that you're writing for speaks in a little bit more advanced, right? Then increase the grade level because it will sound out of touch for them. So increase the grade level to about like grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, whatever. Just don't go too high. The lower, the better. The simpler, the better. It's more understandable. What else? use bolds and italics very scarcely and use it as essentially a scannability thing. Here's what that means. When people are scrolling through the emails, what are the things that you can bold to essentially hear the main points that even if they read the main points, they can understand the gist of it. Right. That's a key thing. And then italics. Use bolds and italics very, very scarcely. The other thing is with PS. This is super, super tactical, but with PS, right? You know, the postscript or whatever?
Yeah, postscript.
At the bottom. Almost everyone reads that. So put something interesting in the PS, put whatever you want to put in the PS. Basically, almost everyone reads that. So keep that very juicy, right?
Yeah, to the point. Or even if the CTA link is in the PS, that might be also smart.
Yeah, that's great. I do that all the time. All the time.
So I think the person who listens to this video or watches this video, I think they can come from two places, right? Someone who writes copy. I think the main question there is how can you replicate or how can you understand the communication or the style of a creator or a brand where you are writing the copy for, right? Like, it's very interesting because when I started in the online marketing world and got into this space, I actually started writing copy for someone. That was my very first thing. And they told me I was selected from 150 people who submitted like a test copy. And I was selected as number one from 150 people, they told me. And I have never considered myself a good copywriter, but I think I was just able to write such a good copy because I had I was following the guy for a very long time, for like 3-4 years at that point, and I just understood the tone of voice that he had, right? And then I was able to replicate that very easily, and I remembered stories that he had. So it was literally on my mind, like what stories I can pull from his life. You know what I mean? So I think it was a very specific scenario where I was able to generate such a good copy for one specific person, but I would not be able to replicate it. And then the other group where people might watch this video is they have a brand where they want to write copy for themselves. So they do have the stories, but they have to wrap it up in a way where it increases the open rates, where it increases the click-through rates, where you can have that raw story from your life and then you can turn it into a exciting thing. Like it comes across exciting on the other side of the internet, if you will, right? So what would you say, I mean, to either of these two parties, if you will, like how can you learn someone else's style? You can also go into the technical, like have an onboarding document where you ask this, or whatever you say. And on the other side of the equation, where they do have the stories of themselves, but they just don't necessarily know how to package up in a way where it comes across interesting.
Okay. To be completely...
You as an agency owner, I just wanted to add this. You have to understand a lot of different people's lives and stories and how to make that interesting. So actually, you understand both very well, right? Because you have to collect the stories and then you have to wrap them in a way where it's interesting, right?
Cool. So just as a disclaimer, to be completely fair, do you remember at the beginning of the pod, you were like, is this a little bit of an art or a science? Or was this nature and nurture, right? To be completely fair, it's actually quite a bit of raw talent, right? Which I don't really understand either. But the other thing is, it was a lot of nurture as well. My first job was door-to-door sales, selling the most cold thing, the hardest thing I could find, which was 2-year charity donation contracts, direct debit to a cold audience that I've never met before in the suburbs. As a 17-year-old, that was my first job.
Good luck with that, right?
Yeah, good luck. Asking them, hey, can you put your credit card on here? And I've never met you. Right? Good luck. Have fun.
Yeah.
For 2 years, by the way. 2 years.
And by the way, I just came from school.
Oh yeah, but yeah. Just came out of school, no life experience. 17-year-old kid, yay tall, right? So Also, I've done a lot of like public speaking stuff, improv, spent a lot of time, partying in my early 20s. So it was a lot of experience.
Yeah, you are a
That's
very
why.
extrovert person, right? Like you like to be around people. It fills you with energy, right? You like to talk. You understand people very well, and I would say human nature and human persuasion, regardless if it's like door-to-door sales or is it a written format or whatever. But that's a superpower for you, right? Like that's where you are coming from originally as like a God-given gift that you obviously nurtured along the way. But that's kind of like the baseline, isn't it?
That's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do have to put a disclaimer. I got fired from that door-to-door sales job 2 months in because I couldn't figure out sales. And I couldn't figure it out because I thought it was something logical. But it's not something logical. People aren't logical. Right.
Okay.
You have to think about the person. You have to think about what are they going through, what are the patterns. Like it's a ton of different things. Right. So
Yeah.
if you ask me very, very specific questions, I can get into a very specific.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a disclaimer, first of all.
Okay.
Now, to answer your question, right, of how do you write in someone else's, let's start with this. How do you write in someone else's tone of voice? Right. That was one of your questions. Was that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Let's start with this. How do you write with someone's tone of voice? A lot of amateurs are going to give you bullshit answers, which is like, oh, when you're onboarding them, send them a fucking doc. Trash.
Okay.
I'm going to give you some juicy stuff, right? Highly tactical, highly juicy. You can literally go and do this right now.
Let's go.
Okay. If you want to write for multiple people, like you want a system that you can duplicate, one of the first things that I would do, right, is go scrape all of the personal brands or all the creators, past long form content. If they have been building a personal brand for years, they're going to have a lot, which means they already have the stories and they told it when it was fresh or almost fresh, or at least they had the lessons when they were writing or telling that out. Cool. So it's already done for you. All you need to do is download all of that stuff, transcribe it. I personally use, actually, I'm not going to plug them because I'm not, whatever. I personally use turboscribe.ai, right? If you want to use that, it's like 20 bucks, 15. I don't know how much it is. Right. Super easy. Transcribe everything. And then what you do is you build an AI agent that becomes your story, essentially miner, that goes into all of these transcripts and then bring out the stories. I would have a specific template. You can drop it I can give it to you if you want. And you can drop it for the guys.
We can drop anything under the video.
Yeah, I'll give you guys a template, no problems. Yeah. Right. And then have a specific template where you essentially go, all right, what is the name of this story? Right. When did it happen? What was the problem? Like you just go through like problem, challenge, how did they overcome it? XYZ, who was involved? You go marketing angles, right? And also here's a key point, super, super tactical. You have to have a verification process. What does that mean? A lot of these AI agents, they hallucinate, they make bullshit up. Right. And also a lot of these stories, because the stories are like semantics, right? They will say a little bit, the creator will say a little bit in a vlog here. They'll say a little bit in a post here. Sometimes they say the full thing. Sometimes they don't. Right. So the AI agent has to pull things semantically together. Okay. Which means they have to get context from different things. Now, what you do there is as a copywriter, because we don't want to go back and forth with the creator all the time. Otherwise, if you can't rely on your source material, you can't come up with creative stuff. You're screwed because you don't know how far you can go, right? So you need to be able to rely on the source material, which goes put a verification process in there. In the template, you can put the template to the AI agent. You'll do it by itself. And all verification process is hey, is this fully verified? Yes, tick. Is this contextually verified? Yes, tick. Is this not verified at all and has missing info? Yes, tick. Right, whichever one. By the way, very simple way to do it is just use emojis, right? Green emoji for fully verified, orange one for missing info or whatever, red for, hey, really missing, whatever it is.
How do you decide if it's good, it's middle, or it's not good?
Gotcha. So how do you decide if the information or the stories that were pulled out were fully verified,
yes,
fully verified, missing info, or not verified?
Yes.
I personally would leave it towards the AI agents, right? Do that. You just tell it, hey, if it's verified, XYZ, blah, blah. Like you just let it figure it out. And then you put it onto a relational database, which is like Airtable, Notion. Okay. If you want to go more amateur, go Notion, right?
Yeah.
Put on Notion, whatever it is, Excel. Give it towards the clients and have the clients read through it and then put a checkbox and then get them to verify themselves. And the reason why I say that is Now you put and this is just normal client management. If you've been working with clients for a long time, you figure this stuff out. Now you put the responsibility on the client, right? Whereby if you get something wrong, cool, you verified it. Cool. So we both come to an agreement that these are the stories and the source of truth that I'm going to be writing the emails from or the copy from.
That's smart.
So now you put the ball in their court to essentially take responsibility. That's one. The other part is every single email that comes out still gets its final gatekeeps by them anyways. So you're still good to go either way. So to backtrack towards your question was, how do you set up the thing so that it's fully verified? You don't have to. You don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, basically the first part of it was how do you extract stories, which you actually answered. You use now a lot of AI, and actually that's what I was kind of expecting.
I can give you the prompt. I can give you the prompt, and you can put it in the below.
Yeah, I mean, I was more curious about the strategy now, or like the rough thing, not like the exact prompt. Like how do you approach verifying? But this is a very important part that you just said, that you basically. And you also mix it with client management, which is an important part because this is a very sensitive area. I know because I'm also working in the same space. So we know this and we get this experience a lot where the client's brand is very, very important. They protect it a lot because that's their, like there are production companies who have large machineries that's worth millions of dollars. That's the asset that the company holds, and that's why it's valuable, because other people don't have the machinery and then they can't produce that same thing, right? That's what gives them competitive advantage. And then in case of personal brands that we are building, the brand itself is the machinery, right? That's what gives you the edge that separates you from the rest of the market. And so that's why they are, as they should, protecting a lot. As you are bringing on the story verification part of it in the client management part, it also speeds up the work with like working with the client, right? Because they approve, you are pulling the stories from there, you write a copy, and you will run into less rejections of copies, if you will, because it's already approved by them. You are fine tuning what they would like to see at the end copy. So you help them to make them more comfortable. You help yourself because you get less rejected copies. So it's a pretty smart way of working them. And so that's one part, which I think you answered with a very smart process. And the other part is, once you have the stories, what's your strategy of packaging up in a good way? If I don't have an ability to write good copy, which I can measure with open rates, how do I make a good copy out of my good story?
Okay. I'm going to backtrack slightly. Actually, you don't measure good copy with your open rates. The only thing you can measure with your open rates is one, your relationship, and your relationship with the audience's relationship with the lists, right? What that means is, how do they see the brand? Have you been selling too much? Blah, 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 like the relationship with the list. And then the other part is the only copy part is whether the headline and the preview text was good. How you actually know if the copy was good was whether they clicked and whether they keep opening, keep clicking. That's how you know. But back to your question, which was something along the lines of,
how do you turn a good story into a good copy?
Okay, cool. Great stories are essentially, or I mean, this is just natural human communication, which is structure, right? Great stories are structured well. I know it's very high level, but it's hard to get into these things without like actually doing something right now and getting to specifics. But to essentially answer the question is, great stories are structured well. Yeah. And you essentially have to.
What is the structure? Like, do you have a specific structure how you tell a story?
For this, I actually can't answer it that well because I'm realizing right now that it's unconscious competence.
Okay.
I do it without thinking about it. It's unconscious competence.
You built it over the years, right?
Yeah. Now it's to the point where like the skill is just, it's like asking how do you drive. So now I actually can't give a good answer for that.
When you are training your agents or any coworkers or whatever, you kind of have to explain them it properly, right? If you are prompting up an agent, what's the flow you are prompting them with?
Actually, you don't have to anymore. These agents are so good that you don't really have to.
The inputs
Yeah,
already kind of helps you with writing the story.
yeah. Okay, so I mean, with the agents, with training these agents, it's just standard prompt engineering, like just very, very, very standard stuff.
Yeah.
Which is like role, context, something,
Yeah.
notes, whatever. Right. Super. If you just Google prompt engineering, any YouTube video will teach you this stuff.
Yeah.
And these agents are actually pretty good, whereby you don't have to tell it like in and outs and stuff like that. However, if you do have a template of stuff, if let's say you have a template of past emails that did really well, or you had template of campaigns that did really well, you know, you can feed that into these agents and essentially tell them to spit something out in this same flow. Now,
You can
currently,
always refine it.
yeah, currently these agents won't be able to write 100% in your voice, right?
Yeah.
So you have to do the last 20%, but you can, like, anyone that doesn't know how to write, honestly, chuck into the agent.
Yeah. All right. And then from a AI technical perspective, like what tools would you use? Would you use Claude, for example? I'm using for copywriting specifically. I use Claude a lot. Like what agents do you use?
Yeah. So here's a super interesting part. Okay. Here's a super interesting part. I would use different agents for different kinds of copy.
Okay.
Right. And this just came through experience. I would, if I were you, like, and if you guys are writing, let's say, emails or something, use Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And then if you're writing something like long form copy, use OpenAI's one, I think it's like 1.0 or something, right? That one's better. I don't know what updates that they made in it's about like the last 3 weeks, but the ChatGPT 1.0 got a lot better for long form writing.
Okay, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it comes down to a lot of testing, right? Because we were also like split testing these tools. I'm also very curious about DeepSeek since it's a pretty recent news. I'm curious how it's gonna go, but generally I use a lot of ChatGPT and Claude, even in like our one-shot prompting. If we are building like workflows or something that it's either ChatGPT or Claude so far, but yeah, I'm curious how new tools are going to evolve, and it's a very interesting market because if someone watches this 1 year from now, you know, it might completely change. But the underlying thinking, I think, the most important because the way you use these tools, the tool is itself is just a leverage, right? Like you have to be smart enough to use it well, right? And if someone can take away the things that don't change over the years, I think that's the most important part.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna add to this, which is everyone is using these tools incorrectly. Right.
Okay.
When it comes to email marketing, everyone's using these tools incorrectly. They think, oh, I'm gonna write these emails with, or I'm gonna do some copywriting with Claude or XYZ or whatever. Wrong thinking. And the reason why I say it's wrong thinking is this: email marketing is a very metric heavy channel, sales channel, right?
Okay.
It's very, very metric heavy. And what that means is you can basically, it's one of the platforms that you can very heavily trust the data that you're getting. What does that mean? A lot of these social media platforms, let's say like other channels that you can communicate with your audience, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, right? If they change the algorithm overnight or shadow ban you out of nowhere, cool. Like you can't trust your metrics at all. You're screwed, right?
Well, this is something that we haven't talked about yet. Why email marketing is so good. First of all, you own the platform. You own the email list.
Yeah.
While on any other platform like Meta or like they own the platform. So yeah, you can be banned at any day of the week.
Yeah. You own the email list. The email list is yours. You can update it you can upload it to anywhere and still communicate with your audience on that the newest platform, whatever. But here's
Yeah.
the other key point is that emails, at the very least, an email marketing channel, right? I don't know if this audience would know this, but for emails, email marketing converts, I think the number was like 30 to about 45 times ROI or something. Like something stupid. It's on my Instagram, but it's something stupid. It's dumb. right?
Yeah,
And I said,
one number which is in my head. I think I read this from Sabri probably, but he also referred to a larger study or something like that. But basically, like every $1 that you spend on your email marketing efforts, softwares, whatever,
oh, there you
comes
go.
back 44 times. So
Yeah.
the ROI is basically 44x on every spent $1 on an email list.
I mean, it depends on which study you look at. I think it ranges from like 30 to 45. The point is a lot of money. Okay. The point
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
if like you would put as much money as you can into that machine, but everyone thinks that it's a boring machine, so then they don't do it. Right.
Yeah.
Also,
In a lot of times, honestly, and that's why this shiny object syndrome kills a lot of people, is because the money is not made in, oh, there is a very good term for this. Money is not made in
with the
invention.
sexy,
Yeah, like it's not in the sexy things, right? It's in the
no,
boring
it's the
things,
boring stuff.
boring businesses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think Cody Sanchez is talking about this a lot, like buying up boring businesses and then just digitalize it and make it more efficient. But it's still boring. Like who talks about owning a landromat business? But it
Yeah, but
pays
it
the
spits out
bills.
cash. It
Yeah,
spits out
yeah,
cash.
yeah, exactly. You can feed your family. It pays the bills. Like it's great. I mean, you can go chase adrenaline somewhere else and then make no money or lose money or just have fun. But if we are talking about like business building perspective, if it's boring but the math is coming out, like me personally, I don't care. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I can do my sexy stuff on the side and lose money, or but that's called a hobby or a not so efficient business model.
Yeah. And to add on to what you said as well, here's the key part about emails is that your strategies or anything that you do on email has a long half-life.
Yeah.
What that means is this is that because the platforms don't change, because this platform doesn't change that much, there has been in the last 30 years, by the way, there's been two massive changes on email, on the like email platform.
What were they?
Two. I don't remember specifically what they were from the top of my head, right? But two. Okay. After that, it's fairly stable.
Yeah. Probably some spam filtration, a DNS record setup,
Yeah.
specific
If you
stuff.
just
Yeah,
Google
yeah.
it,
But that was
if you
like,
just Google it, you'll find it
yeah.
easy.
Yeah, I love this. Man, what would you say? I think we covered a lot of ground now from technical perspective, from copywriting, from workflows, from how you like generate stories and like present them in an interesting way. I think we covered a lot of things. What would you say? What else would you say that is important in terms of copywriting?
Important?
Yeah, I mean, now we are specifically talking about email copywriting for creators, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a niche approach. But do I apply the same knowledge and same kind of approach when I'm writing a sales funnel copy, for example,
Okay.
or a paid ads copy above the image or the video?
Okay. I'm gonna give a huge golden nugget here, and if you know how to utilize this, or if you have the skill to utilize this golden nugget, you'll make a lot of money. It's very like high level, not tactical. Up until now, I've been giving a lot of like super tactical stuff. This is a lot more granular, how to think, right? So when it comes to copywriting in general, let's zoom out a little bit. Let's chunk up, right? In NLP, this is called chunking up. So let's just chunk up a little bit. Copywriting is just persuasion in writing. All right. So let's chunk up a little bit further. So it's persuasion. And then you chunk up a little bit further, it's human communication. Okay. But let's go towards persuasion specifically. And the reason why you understand in a second. With persuasion, the number one principle that I found in the last 10 years, and I've done all kinds of selling and marketing, right? I already mentioned the door-to-door stuff. I was a DM sales manager at one point. I was, public speaking, improv, selling Zoom, selling on the phone, everything. It's like 7-hour negotiations, like everything, right? With like 8-figure founders as well. So with the number one thing with persuasion is just understanding this line. And this line is this, is that people will resist what they're told, but never doubt what they conclude. I'm going to say that again. People resist what they're told, but never doubt what they conclude. What does that mean? It means if you tell someone something, there is at least 1% or 0.5% or whatever the percentage is in their brain that's skeptical and going to resist. The more, and if you go into personality traits, if you go into like the big five or things like that, the more disagreeable someone is, so on the scale of agreeableness, the more disagreeable someone is, they're going to resist more, right? So if you tell them something, they're going to almost everyone has a bit of resistance in their head, but they almost never doubt what they conclude. If you can get them to come to the conclusion by themselves, right? They're like, yeah, I came to the conclusion. Like, this is my thoughts. This is X, Y, Z, and pure, yeah, whatever, right? They almost never doubt it. But here's the thing, is how you do that changes, and it changes in whatever era, whatever time. Let me explain. In olden, let's say you go back about 15, 20 years, right? There was car salesmen and XYZ, or maybe even go back, I don't know, 5 years. And if you go traditional sales, let's say you're doing high volume, high frequency sales where you're hitting Zoom calls or you're just selling cars or whatever. And then they teach you the training that these guys have, freaking terrible, by the way. But the training that these guys have is something along the lines of like, oh, can you imagine that you have XYZ? Can you imagine? Shut up. It's crap. Right? It's crap because of one, banner blindness. People have heard that over time. And two, it's tacky. As long as you follow this principle and you can get them towards the same conclusion, right? These things don't work anymore because the audience has already seen it. But if you can get them towards that same conclusion by leading them there, right? Asking them different questions, going different routes to get them towards, again, I said, this is not going to be tactical, so it's not super tactical. But you can just get them there to make them think that you're good to go. Now, I'm going to start chunking down, okay? That's the chunked up level of how you just persuade someone. If you can get someone to think it on their own, you're sweet. And how do you write? Is on a chunked up level with copy or writing or XYZ, you essentially want to answer questions because it's an async communication, which means you're not there and you can get feedback from them immediately. Like you can't see their body language, you can't see whatever. So you have to it's async communication, which essentially what that means in practice is you have to answer the questions of whoever is reading it before they even kind of think about it.
Yeah.
If a question comes up and they kind of think about it,
you handle the objection in advance.
Prior, yeah. You're already behind the 8 ball if they're already thinking about it and now you're handling it. You're screwed. You're behind the 8 ball, right? So you have to answer the questions before they kind of even think about it. So this is from so we just went human communication, persuasion. This is the one principle. Now, how do you do it with copy? This is how you do it. Again, this is very high, a lot more high level, not tactical.
But this is very important what you just said, because it's writing specific in any kind of writing human persuasion setup, right? Like you don't have a feedback loop. It's asymmetric as you phrased, right? So you have to async. So you have to answer everything in advance, which means that you intimately have to understand what might come up, which you would do from a questionnaire or just scraping online information or whatever. But you gotta understand and understand what they might have in their head, right? And then answer in advance. That's a very good one. And I think it's very important that you just said, and I have a follow-up question on this one. So when you are writing the story, so for example, I see emails where I read you should or you do, it feels like someone is telling me what to do or what should I do. And then I also have sometimes that reaction like, why would you tell me? Who are you to tell me what I should do, right? And so what if I would, and I'm thinking a lot about this as I'm also, making the YouTube videos and everything, how should I frame this? Should I frame this just telling a story of myself and the message is basically the same, like how I did something or how I think about something? I'm not telling you should follow this. I'm just telling what I'm doing. And then basically I'm telling a story and I'm speaking in an I setting, right? Like I'm telling what I'm doing. And then if you want, you can try, or you can follow this. Yeah. I'm giving you the resource. But if I'm coming off with the same video as hey, I did this and I think this is the best for you. This is the link, follow this link, follow this process. I think the first one is just much more, I think, humble, relatable. And if we are talking about long-term brand building, and I'm thinking about this a lot, Like if I just tell my things and then people, and I'm just gonna attract people who naturally like me and like the story and can relate to the story. I'm not telling them what to do, right? It's just coming across better, maybe. Like, what do you think about that?
Okay. I'm going to essentially summarize your whole thing in like a couple of sentences, right?
Please.
In just marketing and persuasion, human communication overall, right? With human communication and persuasion and copywriting, if one of the biggest things you want to be very, 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 very careful about is making claims. If you ever make a claim, and a claim is like, you should do this, we are the best, I guarantee this, whatever. If you make, as soon as you make a claim, you are open to people tearing you apart. And more so if it's an absolute claim.
Such as?
We are number one in the world. Absolute claim. I'm a number one in the world. Right?
Are you?
That's an hell no. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So absolute claims, very, very careful. You should do this is also kind of an absolute statement, right?
Yeah.
Be very, very careful of those. And the more absolute something is, and the less that you have nuance, people will start berating you, and you are basically open to getting teared apart. But here's the really interesting part: is these tend to do better with social media content, which is why it goes viral, right? It causes a lot of like things
controversy.
Bingo. It causes a lot of controversy. But in real life, you would have gray areas, you would have nuance. The problem is you can't essentially, one, you're not going to generate that much controversy with if you add in nuance, right? The second problem is when you're on these platforms, so for example, X, Twitter, whatever it is, 140 characters, a short used to be like 60 seconds long. Like you don't have enough time to insert nuance, which is also why you get a lot of controversy and all that crap. But if you actually talk in person, you're like, I believe this, but XYZ, or X, blah, 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 but over here, right? You have time to be able to flesh it out. So that's just human communication overall. Now, in terms of your specific thing, where you were saying, if someone says I feel it, and then you feel a certain way, you're like, oh, resisting, whatever. That's a claim. They're making an absolute statement or telling you to do something which is causing you to resist. Like that's basically it, right? But if they go away from the concept of claim and then they say something along the lines of, hey, I'm not telling you to do something. Now I'm adding in nuance and then see how this feels, right? I go, oh, hey, I'm not telling you to do something. This is just how I did it. Feel free to take it. Feel free to take it. That's it. And then you feel fine.
Yeah, because the communication is more like a case study, right? I'm saying I did this. This was the result.
So as well, to add on top of that, if you want to like supercharge that sentence or whatever, if you do want to brag, if you do want to drop something, but you don't want to come off like braggadocious or whatever.
Yeah.
One of the best frames is, okay, cool. Like let me just continue the one that I just made, which was, hey, I'm not telling you to do this. This is just what I did. And then you add this short little frame right here, which goes, feel free to chuck this in the garbage if it doesn't resonate. Feel free to throw this out.
Yeah.
That's it. If it resonates, take it.
Yeah.
Use it. Improve your life. And if it doesn't, throw it out the window.
Yeah. It's more like a pool communication. If you don't, that's fine. Yeah. I'm not pushing on you. You do whatever you want.
And then everything you say after that sentence, you can brag as much as you want, and it won't really come off as obviously with some tact, but it won't come off as that braggy.
Yeah.
Right. Which means you can drop a lot of marketing claims and stuff like that. But now we're getting into marketing. But yeah. All this stuff is the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. I think these extra nuggets at the end was really valuable. So thanks for that. Do you have anything else to add to this conversation? Because I'm super happy what we got out of this conversation.
Besides, yeah, if you guys need any help or
shitload of practice. A lot of practice.
Yeah, a lot of practice. That too.
Exactly. But if you don't have anything to add, then how can people reach you, and what can you help people with?
Great question. So you can probably you can reach me on Instagram. That's probably the best way, right?
Everything is gonna be dropped under the video, by the way.
Cool, perfect. Then yeah, reach me on Instagram there. And then if you're a creator, right? So let's say you have a creator with 100K plus audience size or stuff like that. We essentially do two things, right? We grow email lists and we monetize email lists. That's super simple, right? everything that you don't have to learn any of this stuff. By the way, this I'm doing way more advanced stuff than this. This is like it's good, but there's like still juice that I can't give away on this, unfortunately. So
Yeah, that's fine, man.
If you want this stuff applied towards the business, yeah, we can talk, we can chat.
Yeah, let's do this. As I said in the beginning of the call, we are working together for a year now on a certain account, on a certain project. And so there we generated around 350K so far within the first year. So I think that's a good starting point. And yeah, jump on a call with Khoa and see if he can help you out. Thank you, man. Thank you, man, for the call. And yeah, we will keep the conversation going because we are talking a lot on different projects. And hope to see you soon in person as well, man.
Likewise, bro.
Yeah.
Come out to Bali when you're good to go as well.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna do this year again.
Nice.
All right. See you later. Bye.
All right. Peace. Ciao.